Welcome to the top M&A entrepreneurs. I have a guest back today is Adam Coffey with his third book, Empire Builders, The Road to $1 Billion. Welcome back, Adam Coffey.
John, it's good to see you. It feels like an old friend. I got to write books more often, or more importantly, one of these days we got to actually do something together.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. I got to tell you, I've got all three of your books on my desktop. I love them. They're great. And just yesterday, somebody said was an SMB builder. He's got 3 businesses and in the service-based industry. And it's like, oh, who should I follow? And I go, Adam Coffey. Get on LinkedIn at Adam Coffey.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Hello to all your listeners out there. It's good to be back for I think second time, right? This is my second time.
This is the second time, yeah. I don't know. You coming out with another book in the future?
Every 2 years, brother. Every 2 years. So I take a year off in between, and then I go back at it. And I always perfect my books as seminars first. So Empire Builder, no different. In February, I had 350 people from 70 some odd countries come in to Dallas. We did a seminar called Empire Builder. And then I went pencils, it's like after the seminar was over in February, in March, I started writing Empire Builder based on this 350 PowerPoint slide 2-day seminar that I taught that became Empire Builder.
So you kind of worked out the tweaks in a live audience.
And that's how I always do it. All my books started as college lectures or they started as seminars, and that creates the kind of the framework for the book. And then what worked, what didn't, what do I need to expound upon? And that's my method. That's my creative method. Start teaching, write a seminar that develops into the outline ultimately, and it feeds the book. And
yeah,
somebody was joking with me is like, so you take a seminar that people pay thousands to go to and you turn it into a $4, Kindle book. And I'm like, yeah, but 1 million people read this and only 300 come to my seminar. It's like, it's people want to engage in different ways. They want free. Hey, I got podcasts. They want to spend $3, buy the Kindle. You want to come in person, come to a seminar. You want the one-on-one coaching? Hey, I got that too. It's like people want to engage how they want to engage. It's up to us as entrepreneurs to give them the avenues that let them engage how they want.
Yeah. And we talked about this right before we went live, was if you want that phone to ring, you got to be putting out that valuable content to help people get to where they want to go.
You really do. And I the question I get asked the most by people on LinkedIn is, hey, Adam, how do I penetrate the world of private equity? I read your first book, loved it. I'm Josh or I'm Rose. It's like, how do I get in? How do I break in? And I tell people, LinkedIn, 900 million people on there. It has really become where business people connect. And you need to become a thought leader for your industry, for your area of expertise. You've got to be producing content that's helpful to people, not just an infomercial or a marketing piece. And, if you can build a good presence on a platform like a LinkedIn, use the right keywords, set your flag open to work. Now your phone's going to start ringing. People are going to engage with you, and the probability of success becomes much higher. And just finishing that thought, I also tell people to reach out to the recruiters, because no open C-level jobs in a private equity-backed portfolio company are posted anywhere. They're all retained private searches. And so you got to have the right keywords and the content. So when recruiters are finding you on LinkedIn, they like what they see and they decide to reach out and contact you. And then you need to reach out to the recruiters direct and upload your resume to their portals. And then you're in their database before they ever get to LinkedIn. And then you need to reach out to middle market PE firms that buy companies like the ones where you've got expertise, and you need to send your resume to their portfolio support team and the people who are responsible for human capital, because they know when there's an opening first. Then they engage the recruiter, and then they come to LinkedIn and do the search. You hit all 3 of those levels. I promise you, if you've got, if you do those 3 things, you're going to wind up with your phone ringing all the time.
Yeah, especially if you're posting content and you're connected to that recruiter and they're seeing your content or exposed to your content, you're going to be top of mind awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you've got a great podcast, and I love talking shop with you, and so, this is the other way. It's like, we've got to build that network. The network is everything in today's world. The world that you and I grew up in is gone. doesn't exist anymore. There's a new way to do this, and whether we like it or not, we got to play the game.
Yeah, I got to tell all those veterans getting out of the service, hey man, you got to get used to being talking about yourself and sharing your story.
Yes, and adding value to the people who are out there.
Yeah. So I read the book. It's fantastic. Another one in this. So I want to just start going through this chapters that stuck out to me. So you had to forward to a guy named JT Fox. So who is he to you? That's who you started with. So tell me a little bit more about this guy.
Yeah, happy to. So JT, when I was transitioning from, call it the world of being a CEO in private equity, when you're there, you got blinders on. You got to ignore the world. You're focused on running your company. I leave the CEO cleats hanging on the wall. It's like I'm done. New world to explore. JT reached out to me early on. Hey Adam, read your book. Would love to do. I'm on stages all around the world. This is what I do. And at first he's larger than life, and so he tells the story. It's funny, when we're together, in an audience, or on a stage, and you'll say, the guy ghosted me for 6 months. Well, think about like Billy Mays or one of these pitch men, the guy you turn on your TV and it's the Flex Seal, guy who's selling you he's driving around in his boat on the lake that's got a screen door bottom with Flex Seal on it. It's like JT is like a larger than life promoter. He's a very successful, business coach and very wealthy guy, very good at what he does. And Adam Coffey wants to do a seminar and 3 people want to come. JT hosts a seminar with Adam Coffey on the stage and the room's filled with 1,000 people. It's like, so he was very instrumental in getting me kind of out of my shell and engaging with the public in a broader, newer, new kind of format. And he's the one who hosted the original Empire Builder seminar. And so, he created the stage. I created the content. I tell people, he's the world's best pitch man. I'm the content. I'm the product. He fills the stage, the stadium. The Empire Builder was the content. So I have to give, he says best book in the world because the first line is, I dedicate this book to JT Fox.
Exactly.
Right? That's it. Drop the book.
I got to tell. So we have to ask about JT.
Don't need to read it anymore. So, he's a Tony Robbins, he's a Grant Cardone. He's a business coach, successful entrepreneur. He does care about people, tries really hard to help them. He came after me for like a year before I finally agreed. I got on a stage with him in Anaheim with 1,000 people. It was magical. And so that led to the seminar, which led to the book. So he's the catalyst behind the book.
Fantastic. All right, let's get to talk about a little details in here. In the first chapters, you talk about build what you know people need and only go for fragmented industries. And this is something like the essential businesses, HVAC, and you also did laundromats. Like, why is that the key to focus on?
So in case anybody hasn't noticed lately, our world's in turmoil and economic cycles, there's peaks, there's troughs. It's like, boy, we're in a volatile world with a volatile economy. And so I tell people, if you don't have a business today and you're starting something, or you're going to go buy something and you're coming out of the Fortune 500 world, you're going to buy your first small business, you're going to be an entrepreneur. What do I buy? What do I focus on? I tell people, invest in what you know. Invest in what you know people need. Needs versus wants. So think about that for a second. I want a new truck. I want monster tires for my monster truck. I want a new outfit because I'm going out on Friday night. There's things I want and there's things I need. And if the economy goes south, and I've got to cut back, my spending, Joe Consumer's cutting back on a lot of spending right now. A lot of my consumer-led businesses are cycling down right now. Started in the summer. So the consumer's not spending as much money. Hey, it was just Black Friday. I was out there looking at stores. It's like, where's the crowds? It wasn't all that crowded out there. And so look, if you focus on wants, if I'm in tough economy, I don't have to spend. I can delay that spend forever. So if I'm going to build a business, build an empire, I want to focus on needs, because at the end of the day, I learned this in laundry, by the way. So unemployed people don't do as much laundry as employed people do. Let's start there. But everybody on the planet has to do laundry at some point. So it's like it's insulated from the ups and downs of the broader economy. So if we focus on needs, not wants, we're not going to cycle as much. We're not going to get killed when the economy goes south. We're going to be able to ride out kind of that economic distress that goes on. Seems to be more frequently in the world. So focus on needs, not wants. Next, focus on recurring revenue streams, not project-based businesses. So it's a need, but if it's project-based, a lot of projects get delayed during, call it a downturn. But if so think about like a pest control company. It's a need. I live in Texas. There's freaking bugs here that look like I'm in Vietnam, and they're giant, and the centipedes that look like snakes, and snakes that will kill you, copperheads and what have you. It's like, there's bugs everywhere. And so it's like, I need pest control. Matter of fact, my wife gets freaked out when this stuff gets in the house. And so, it's like, I have 2 pest control companies, and I actually have them come different months. And it's like, they think they're the only one, but it's like, I'm double nuking my perimeter, and it's like, I need pest control. I live in Florida. I got a bug net over my backyard, and it's like, I need pest control because I could put a saddle on a cockroach, so I need it. But then I sign a contract, and every month that pest control company hits my credit card. And so I don't have to chase revenue. Every event, when I'm a project-based business, and hey, I've made a lot of money in project-based businesses, so don't get me wrong. But the reason I focus on needs is because I want you to be successful. And then recurrent revenue, because I don't want you to have to find a new customer every time you need revenue. I want you to keep going back to the same customer and hitting their credit card so that 90% of your revenue is just being billed on the first of the month and collected. And so if I have needs, not wants, I'm insulated from the economy. If I have recurrent revenue, I find this thing which is difficult, which is a customer, and I've got a regular revenue stream from that same customer. Wall Street, private equity loves businesses with recurrent revenue. So whenever I sell this thing, I am going to get maximum value because I'm a needs-based business that has a recurrent revenue stream. So these are the things that I tell people, and some statistics that might scare people when you actually look at them. It's like there's 33 million small businesses in the country, in the US, and only 7% have $1 million in revenue. And
that's tiny.
Yeah, that's a tiny, and only 4% of those get to 10 million. And I'm thinking, I built billion-dollar businesses. Why the hell is it so hard for people to get it right? And so I focus in those early chapters too about unit level economics. And it's like, you got to get a business working small before you worry about building a big empire. And if you can't make it work in the first 100 grand or the first million, you're never getting to 10 million or 100 million or $1 billion. And the one thing none of us in life can buy is time. And so we need to understand if our business is flawed, let's find out early before we waste too much time, before we invest too much money. Let's move on to something else. And so to do that, I have this thing I call the 30-20-10 rule. I want at least 30% gross profit. So I've got revenue. Let's use my pest control company as an example. I got revenue I'm charging these homeowners or these businesses for the pest control contract. My unit level economics are 1 person in 1 truck, a sprayer on the back of the truck, and I'm out there servicing this revenue. What's my cost to operate that truck? What's my cost for salary, wages, benefits, all the things I need to pay? What's my direct operating cost to service that revenue and call it mine? And so I take what's the revenue potential at the unit level minus my direct operating costs. It better yield at least a 30% gross profit margin. If it doesn't, then I need to work on price or work on lowering my direct operating costs. But I want at least a 30% gross margin. If I don't have it, walk away. It's like, this is not a business I can scale because I need at least 30% gross profit. Then I look down and I look at my SG&A, my back office, my cost of acquiring a customer, my cost of servicing the back office, paying, doing APAR, all that stuff. And that must be 20% or less at the SG&A line. If it's not, I got to focus on delivering the back office, part of my business better, more efficiently, or figure out a cheaper way to acquire my customers. And so 20% or less. Why? Because I must earn at least 10 cents on a dollar, kind of at the bottom, in order for this business to be something that's scalable. And I have a lot of entrepreneurs, John, they tell me, look, Adam, I don't make any money. I'll figure it out when I get bigger. It's like, nah, hell you will.
No, that doesn't work.
Your problems will get bigger. Your problems will
Yeah.
get bigger. You can't make it work small. It'll never work big. And so where I'm going with this in the early chapters of that book is I'm wanting people to focus on needs, recurrent revenue streams, get the pieces of their business, in the correct balance. Now I can say I want $1 million in revenue. How many crews, how many pest control trucks? What's the revenue potential per truck? That's my unit level economic. How many do I need to get to $1 million? And then I can build a revenue plan. What's my capital expenditures? I got to buy the trucks. I got to buy the sprayers in the back of the truck, the backpack. It's like I got to equip my people. It's like, so I can build a capital expenditure plan. I can build a revenue plan, to the first $1 million. I can build it to the 10 million mark. And, I need 6 trucks to get to $1 million with my pest control business. I need 51 trucks to get to 10 million, in my pest control business. And what I can do is I can reduce success. I can build a formula where 93% of the American businesses fail to get to $1 million. I can build a formula that creates certainty to success, and I can build it where 4% of only of those people get to 10 million. We can build the early stage formulas, and as I'm getting bigger, I'm going to create operating leverage, which means I'm going to become more profitable, because when I buy 50 trucks, it's cheaper than when I buy 6, or cheaper than when I buy 1. And so as I'm getting bigger, I can actually create an increased level of profitability as I'm scaling. But if I can make a business work small, John, I guarantee you can build $1 billion empire.
Let me ask you about that unit level economics in these businesses. Most of them, 90 plus, don't just get to $1 million. So what stops them going to the second $1 million? Because that they're a small business. They've worked out their unit level economics, and is it, what's the percentage to say, I'm comfortable with my lifestyle, the accoutrements, I don't want to grow anymore, I don't want to manage more people, I just don't have the will?
So all of the above, right? So I'll call it in a lifestyle business, we're working to an income, and we're content when we get there. And I see that all the time in companies that I work with, especially in the sales arena. So, if I've got a protected territory, one person goes into that territory and they produce $300,000 a year in income. Another person goes in there and they produce $100,000 a year in income. It's like, why does one get 100 and the other gets 300? Well, the guy who gets 100, he's happy at 100. He's out playing golf 3 days a week. What a great life I've got. I'm earning 100 grand. And so I don't have the ambition to get any farther. That's certainly a problem. In entrepreneurial businesses too, I'd say there's a total lack of accountability, personal accountability. So if I'm the CEO of a company and I'm not performing, and I'm just telling my board, hey, I'm not going to grow this year. I'm happy. I'm content. It's like, your shareholders aren't going to get any return on their investment, but don't worry, life's good. I'm going to get fired. Well, if I'm an entrepreneur and I decide that I've arrived and I'm not going to work very hard, who's going to hold me accountable? Who's going to fire me for not going back at it? So I think there's some degree of it's a lifestyle business, or I just don't know how. I don't know how to get any bigger. I'm working really hard and I'm producing $1 million, and that gives me, 150,000 income, and I'm good with that. And so I just, I'm already working. I got no bandwidth. And that's because, I'm not working smart. I don't have my unit level economics dialed in, because if I did, I'd have time, I'd have bandwidth, I'd have a successful small business, and growth becomes easy. And so, I really, when I wrote that book, I focused on getting out of the gates, because 93% don't get to the $1 million. It's like, let me make the $1 million easy, because the $1 million is easy. Let's make the 10 million easy. Let me talk to you about how you get to 100 million, and then take 100 million, to someplace else, on the way to $1 billion. And all businesses start, and they work or they fail in the first 100,000. And so I did a lot of research on this. I bought 58 companies, remember? And so a lot of entrepreneurs, I find most entrepreneurs don't stop at $1 million. Those who are successful, those who beat the odds, those who get to $1 million, and then they get to 10 million. Most of them kind of top out at about 20 to 30 million. And then that's it. They plateau. What's the difference between 20 and 30 million and 100 million? And I'll tell you that to get out of the gates, to make that first million, to make that first 10 million, they're anal retentive control freaks. And they have to be, to make sure, I call it the Happy Meal effect. We got to make sure that we're consistent in everything that we do so that we're replicating our success model. But then I run out of bandwidth, and it's usually around 20 or 30 million in the kind of companies that I buy, where I find entrepreneurs, they run out of bandwidth, and that's it. Growth kind of stops from that point on. And I tell people at that point, they got to learn how to find the gear shifter, and they got to learn how to go from being an anal retentive control freak who manages every minute detail of their business to now becoming a conductor of an orchestra, a manager of process. Hire the good team and give them the vision, but cut them loose and start managing process, not transactions, and not.
Yeah. Let me talk about that, because you got a chapter in culture, manage for culture, not revenue.
Yeah.
I got to hear about this four-legged stool: fair wages, excellent benefits, retirement, and opportunities for growth.
So what's the biggest problem we got in any industry today? The world doesn't want to work anymore, John.
That's like
yeah. Everybody wants to be a TikTok, social media influencer star that makes millions, but doesn't really do anything, else than that. And nobody wants to work very hard. So the hardest thing, if we're growing an empire, is to get good people who are motivated to work hard. And I learned this early in my career. So I'm going back decades now. I learned that if I want to grow revenue, I got to have people. If I want to have people working hard for me, I got to have a good culture. I got to have a strong culture to get an engaged workforce. Engaged workforce takes care of customers. Customers like being taken care of. They give me more stuff. Revenue rains from the skies. It's like, that's my formula for success. But 20 years ago, I was kind of an odd duck to think that way. Today, that's how everybody thinks. Not all companies really, they pay it lip service sometimes, but people want to know what you're doing, what you believe in, how they fit in. It's like they want to have a voice. They want you to care about them. And it's like, if you truly build a strong culture, you can attract the people that you need. And generally, simple guy, I have one goal: hire somebody. I want to create an environment where they can spend their entire career. How do I do that? 4 things: four-legged stool. Pay a fair wage. If I don't pay a fair wage, I'm going to lose talent. I don't want mediocre people because I can get them cheap. I want good people who are going to work hard. And if I got to pay them a certain wage to get them, then I need to pay that wage. And if I can't afford to pay that wage, I need to raise the price on my product. Let's go back to unit level economics. It's like, I need to have good people, especially in a growth company. So pay a fair wage. But I also have to have good benefits. We all get old. I'm 59. Hell, I hurt in places I didn't know existed 20 years ago. But I still look out the eyes of a young guy, but there's an old guy looking back at me now. So it's like, we all need good health care. I never have different benefits for executives. I make, when I'm running a company, the same decision that the janitor in a plant's going to make. And if my wife wants good health care and I want good health care, then by God, my lowest level employee is going to have good health care too. And so I need health care. I need good retirement plan, because we all want to eventually think, hey, we can stop doing what we're doing and go fishing or go sit by the pool, or go see the grandkids. And so, we all at some point want to hope that we can retire because we had enough money. And so I always believe in having a rich retirement plan, and then fourth, even if I did those 3 things, I still lose good people, because some people are looking for promotional opportunities. The 4th leg of the stool, probably the most important, is we got to create opportunity. And growth is what creates that opportunity. So as I'm building a company that's scaling from 10 million to 100 million to $1 billion, I need, I'm building structure up underneath. And it's like, hey, that person was really good in the truck. They become a service manager. Hey, they were a good service manager. They become a vice president of operations. Hey, that vice president of operations becomes a COO someday, and that COO becomes a CEO. And how do I know this? I'm that guy. I was the guy who started in the truck, service technician. And so I need to create a path for growth. They don't have to take it. I need the person who says, I'm going to be an HVAC tech for the next 30 years. God bless you. You're the journeyman that will teach the next generation of apprentices how to do that job. But I also need to create that path of opportunity that lets the young person who wants to one day be that CEO, they got to have that path of growth. and growth in the company creates the personal growth path for the individual. And so I find if I do those 4 things, if I create that environment where they can stay forever by doing these 4 things, what I get is very engaged employees and employees who work hard in support of the business. And then growth starts to happen. It's pretty magical. I never have a problem hiring people because my culture speaks for itself. My employees go out and they tell their friends, they tell their family members, this is a great place to work. Adam's a great guy. He takes care of us. He cares about us. And it's genuine, John. And that's where, companies who are paying lip service to this today, you can see right through that. There are people who care about employees. There are people that don't, but they try to pretend that they do. It only takes them so far. But if I'm going to build an empire, I'm going to need employees. And I want good people. And I want to attract good people. And we talked about HVAC. That HVAC company that I went in to run, when I first got there, turnover was over 40%. And within 12 months, we had it down in the teens.
So let me ask you what you did there. You saw what the problem was because of the turnover. It wasn't fair wages, excellent benefits, retirement options, and opportunities for growth. You turned all that around, but it changes your unit level economics. Is it going back and forth going, hey, to keep these people, a culture, manage for culture, but all of a sudden it goes beyond the limits of your unit level economics, 30, 20, 10, you got to adjust the prices.
Yeah, absolutely. And matter of fact, all the levers of growth that I talk about then in the future chapters here, it's like you're doing all this concurrently.
Yeah.
And so, but I got to stop the bleeding. So what's the priority? I can't have 40% of my workforce quitting every year. I mean, how can I sustain a company, let alone grow? The sales team told me I can sell all day long. That's not my problem. Problem is we don't got enough guys in trucks to do the work. And so I'm not going to sell it, piss off a customer because I don't have the guys in the truck. And with 40% of your people leaving, all HR is a recruiting effort trying to keep enough butts in trucks to make it work. And so, hey, get in there, start figuring out what's wrong. And it was different in different parts of the country too. So in the Pacific Northwest, there was a lot of union competition, higher wage scales. We were the non-union employer and they're picking off our people. And so it's like, hey, we got to adjust price. We got to make it economically viable for them to say no to unions, stay with us. I had other markets, where like in Texas, it wasn't wage, it was, we don't get sick days. And in California, the people who work in California, because it's mandated by the state, they get 3, I don't remember if it's 3 days, 5 days, of paid sick time. And I'm like, the company was doing the minimally required by law in each country, each part of the country. And I'm like, well, if these employees have got sick time, then give every employee sick time. And let's pay a fair wage based upon the market wage scales for the different parts of the country that we have. And, hey, look, when an employer, I'm not saying this was my HVAC company, but just, when I look at a 401k, I can tell you whether or not an employer cares about their employees by looking at the 401k. So if they say, look, I'm going to match a quarter on a dollar up to like 10% or 8%, I know they don't care about their employees. You come into my company as I'm going to give you $1 for $1 up to 3%. Because I know life is tough in LA, or in New York or in some place like that. And I know you can't afford to give up 8% of your salary. And I want you to save for retirement. So if I give you $1 on $1, hey, that math works pretty good. And everybody gets that. They like that. And all they got to do is give up 3% to max out the potential. And in any company that I've run, for the number of employees that I had, the banks or the people who managed my 401k plans, they were always blown away by how much money was in them. And I'm like, obviously you're doing something right, because for the number of employees you got like this astronomically high, 401k plan. I'm like, I care about my people. I know it's tough. They can't afford to give up 10% of their pay, to retirement and to maximize. And so when an employer is doing a plan like that, they're saying, I don't want to have to pay much. And so I'll make it this way so that not as many people will contribute. I know that employer doesn't give a damn about their people. So it's like, all of these things that you do, some cost money. And so when I get into a company early, usually I buy something or I'm running something, I'm going to make a lot of these tweaks early. And a lot of them are going to be positive. And they're going to say, hey, I can see he's investing in me. So I'll take earnings even lower because, they see what I'm doing. And then I'll slap them with a change or two. Hey guys, we're being lazy over here. We need to work harder, or I need to restructure this or redo that. But I'm giving them, they're seeing the yin with the yang. I'm demonstrating, I'm walking the walk. I care about what's going on. I want to build a strong culture because in my world, in my belief system, a strong culture is the key to revenue. And, that's rare to hear. I think sometimes people think of private equity, they think, well, they're going to squeeze every potential dollar or dime out of a workforce.
That's usually the template, right? They come in, they borrow a lot of money to buy the company, and they got to go on cost reduction.
Yeah, but I have demonstrated over decades that profit and taking care of employees, profit and culture are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. And if you are in a service environment, you can't store your product in a box and put it on a shelf. Your product's people. So if I have a strong workforce and a strong culture, they work harder, they generate more revenue, and that generates higher profits. And so I've lived the dream that you can do both. And I would tell you, I'll debunk that just a little bit. I'll go back to COVID. So I'm owned by Ares Management. Ares is the world's largest non-bank lender. Top tier PE firm as well. And during COVID, they actually helped me start a foundation for my employees, and they seeded it with their own money so that I could help my employees who were negatively impacted by COVID. It was beyond the scope of what the company could do itself, funded by my PE firm sponsor. Talk about that's different than what you hear about in the news, right? It's like, they're not squeezing, they're helping me. They're giving me money to give away to employees impacted by COVID. So it's like, I'll tell you that not all PE firms, are created equal. There's good, there's bad, there's small, there's large. And there are a lot of firms out there who also recognize in today's world, I read recently, KKR started actually taking kind of a management shareholder pool and giving profit to all employees of a company. I think it was KKR that did that recently. So I would tell you that as the world continues to evolve, human capital is the most important thing that we need to build an empire, and the better we treat them, the better revenue outcome is. But there are plenty of firms out there who don't think that way, but I do, and so that's why I'm leading the charge that you can take care of people and make money, and PE can be a part of that, and you can have a good outcome.
Let me ask you about the comp plan. Charlie Munger used to say that, show me the compensation plan, I'll show you the outcome. And I'll give you anecdotal evidence. I had a conversation with a guy that owned 50 franchises of cleaning franchises. And first year, he did not do well. And then he tied the comp plan, to how good of a review the cleaner did. The higher the review, the more they got comped. What's your philosophy about comp plans? And
I am all about pay for performance. So I think we need to establish in any company of any size, what is our metric system? So first of all, what are my initiatives? What am I going to focus on to drive growth and value creation? And then what's the measuring system I'm going to put in place to know whether or not I'm winning the game? And then I need to make sure from a visibility and transparency perspective that I educate my employee base really well about why it's important for our company to grow and find financial success. You want to raise next year, where am I going to get that money? You want a new truck, where am I going to get that money? You want new tools, you want training, how can I take you off the road for a week to send you to school and pay for your training? I need money for all of this. So I make sure that people understand at the most granular level, when the company's doing well, what's in it for them. It's raises, it's trucks, it's tools, it's training, new job opportunities. We opened a new branch. I need a manager. It's like, I have to paint the picture so that everybody understands that being a growth-oriented, profitable company doesn't make you evil. That it actually helps and serves their needs too. And then I like to create some type of a competitive tension in the workforce. So if I've got 10 salespeople, It's like, I want to, here's my metrics and let's put them up on the wall for everybody to see. And, magically the person on the bottom doesn't want to be on the bottom anymore. And so they work a little bit harder. The person on the top's got pride in being number one. They work a little harder because they got competition chasing them. And so I call it pay for performance, so let me give you a real life example. Let's assume I got 10 employees and I've got 10 guys in trucks and employees are out there doing something, and I buy 2 new trucks a year. Well, how do most companies give out those 2 new trucks? They go to the oldest trucks and they replace them. And so the employee who's driving the oldest truck with the highest mileage gets the new truck. Not in my world. In my world, who's got the best metrics? Who's producing the most revenue? Who's got the highest margin? Who's got the fewest callbacks? Who is really killing it? They're getting the new truck. And if that person is my top rated number one person every year, I'll give them a new truck every year. And the oldest trucks shuffle down to my poorest performers. And so I tie incentive at all levels to behavior, and I try to be transparent about this is why it matters. We have to be profitable to grow. Growth gives you raises, job opportunities, training, promotional opportunities. So I get granular. I take, what is a high level rolled up with thousands of employees might equal a really good shareholder return, also has to impact employees. Another thing I did at that last company, we not only had ownership and stock being held by executives, I took less than my entitled amount and to spread it deeper into the organization. But again, my sponsor, who was generous, created a separate pool for line employees. And we couldn't give equity to non-accredited investors, but we gave an equity-like instrument that as the stock value went up, it tracked this incentive unit that we created. And so if a person was awarded a stock grant for working hard or an incentive unit, if the stock price was going to go from 10 to 40, then they're going to get $30 as a bonus. And and they didn't have to be an accredited investor because it was taxed as ordinary income. So we created the vehicle. But the point of the matter is that in a business to be successful, we have to explain what we're trying to accomplish. We have to explain how we're going to keep score. We have to explain to the people what's in it for them. And then we have to make, their performance tied to their compensation, to their pay, to their perks, their benefits. And if we can do that, then you'd be amazed at how growth starts to happen and how people push harder.
And you worked at General Electric for a long time under Jack Welch.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about how he became notorious or infamous for that 10%, just lopping off every 10% year.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you that in the early days, that was true. I mean, that the forced turnover, it was kind of like, we're going to force you to prune the bush because we're not going to get what we need if we don't. But after doing that for a while, I would tell you that really kind of went away. It still had the fame, out there. But hey, when I looked at my work group, I didn't have C players anymore. I had A players and B players. And I can't create a work group of all A players. There's going to be people of varying degrees. And so our bottom performers were actually pretty good. And so we stopped kind of enforcing that. But and I'll tell you that pay performance and measuring systems, I'll go back to GE and Jack and say that this is where I learned how to do this. And keep in mind that the world's largest company, number one on the Fortune 500 list under Jack's tenure, this is before tech, was growing so fast, it was doubling in size every 2.8 years. Literally, the world's largest company is growing at 30+%, and it's doubling in size. The stock is doubling every 2.8 years. And if the world's largest company can grow at that pace, then nobody out there listening to this podcast can tell me that their business can't grow at 30%.
Should be able to do
It's not possible. Well, if it's not possible, you're not dreaming big enough. You're not thinking big enough. Time for a new leader. And so every company I've run, I could get growing at plus 30%. Some of that was M&A, some of it's organic, some of it's margin improvement. It's a balanced approach. It can't be all one thing or the other. But at the end of the day, it is possible to grow companies at 30%, which means that, and I used an example in the book, if I had a company with $1 million in revenue, if I'm growing at 10%, in 7.2 years, I'm at $2 million of revenue. And at 14.4 years, I'm now at $4 million of revenue. And at 21 point whatever it is, it's like now I'm at 8 million. I haven't even got
The
to 10 million, and I'm 21 years into it. If I'm growing at 30%, I double in size in 2.8, I triple in size in 3.4, I quadruple in size in 5.2. And a 5-year hold period is a typical PE hold period. If I can quadruple the size of a company in 4 years, I'm guaranteed a good multiple of invested capital, a great return for my shareholders, a great outcome for my employees. I can tell you, with a strong culture, my employees are having fun, they're making money, there's promotional opportunities. It's like I can solve all problems in life with 30% growth every year.
Yeah. The rule of 72, folks. The rule of
Yes.
72. So how did you, back to GE, how did you get the reputation for the turnaround guy? I mean,
Well,
did they just
it's
give you companies and say, hey, this is on our portfolio, go fix it?
yeah,
Or did
kind of
you
like that.
volunteer for it?
No, I was volunteered for it the first time around, and then I became it after. So, when I was, going through, I call it your management training programs, and it's like I was a really, really good engineer. It was a tough decision to make to stop being an engineer that was really, really good, top of his field, and go compete with Harvard MBAs and all these other, really smart people, because I was a dude from a truck, and so I remember my corporate mentor was an ex-professional football player. He played for the Cleveland Browns. His name was Mike Martin. Hi, Mike, if you're out there. I don't know what happened to you. I lost track of you. But at any rate, Mike, I remember he called me in his office and he's like, Adam, if I give you something good to run, I'll never know what you got. I'm going to give you the worst business I got. The worst thing I own, you're going to take it over and you're going to run that thing. And so there were 21 business units in GE Medical Systems, is what it was called at the time, GE Healthcare now. And, not but it was, so I'm running a 3-state service business. It's Arkansas, Missouri, and Kansas. And it's number 21 out of 21. And my goal was worst to first. And in 12 months, we were number 3 in the country. And I did it without whacking the entire staff and rehiring. And it was like all pure motivation and brute, just brute raw energy of this young buck. And if the guy could take the armpit business, 21 out of 21 business units, and take it to number 3. So first of all, there's always somebody who's riding the wave that's got a great market. They got number 1. Another perennial favorite's getting number 2. I got Arkansas, Suey, and I got Missouri, and I got Kansas, and I take that to number 3 in 12 months. And so I immediately got typecast as a turnaround guy. And then they just gave me bigger stuff that was broken from there. And so
Did that sustain the growth? I mean, sometimes you can come in with a breath of fresh air and push it to the up there,
key,
but you
right?
leave, it goes back down to 21, right?
Yeah. Well, so that is a key, John. But in the Fortune 500 world, your life is built in 18-month rotations. And so once I'm out of it, I don't know what the hell happened to it. Not my problem, somebody else's problem. That's the world of the Fortune 500 world. I'm on to the next thing, and I got one cycle to demonstrate my ability to impact the business. And so the reason I say 18 months is because you generally don't start something on January 1st. You start mid-year. You have a partial year, and then you got 1 year that's under your planning, under your guidance. And based on that outcome, if you did well, you're probably being promoted to the next, to the next thing. And in the Fortune 500 world, that's like an 18-month cycle, for promotions. And so if you're a young buck who's climbing the corporate ladder, about every 18 months, you're making a vertical step. And that was just the way of the world. So what happened to that business? Did it sustain it? I don't know. But I have run companies for as long as 13 years, and I was able to sustain that growth through 3 different sets of shareholders. And so I'd say yes, fundamentally a strong company that's well built, well orchestrated. Other than the broader impacts of a macroeconomic event, so I was running a company when planes flew into buildings, during the pandemic, during the Great Recession of 2008. It's like there are things that cause a business to stunt their growth or cycle down. But generally speaking, I'm able to bend the curve and hold it, because the way I attack that, which I lay out in the book, is sustainable. It's not one and done. It's sustainable.
Yeah. Let me jump over to the story about the laundromats, and when you took over this group and grew it through M&A and everything else. You used a polynomial regression models to improve the metrics of the business. How, like, what did that look like? I mean, and the reason I asked that is I remember I was the co-founder of a startup called Turbo Squid, and we had it was a startup, so we had all kinds of inventory of the 3D assets, but we had no customers. And this really smart guy come to me with all the metrics, and I go, "That's great, but we have nobody buying."
Yeah, yeah. So what happened? We had 70,000 locations, in North America, and essentially what we were is mini laundromats inside your apartment complex. So you live in an apartment complex, you don't have a washer dryer unit hookup in your apartment, you've got a common area laundry room. It's a mini laundromat, and I own 70,000 of those. I also own a chain of laundromats, so the traditional laundromat, that is out there as well. And so your choices when you got to do your laundry are you stay home and you do it in your own complex because it's easy, there's convenience factor, or I get in a car and I drive and I go to a local laundromat. And trying to determine how to price and what was the maximum amount of price that we could charge to do a load of laundry, was a very complex issue. And so we hired data scientists and said, we need to figure out the mathematical formula, with a high degree of certainty, statistical certainty, that tells us, that guides us, that informs us what's the maximum amount we can charge for a load of laundry. Because we're not a charity. We don't do laundry for free. We want the maximum revenue. The building owner's getting a split of that revenue, or our laundromats competing with people in other buildings not owned by us. And it's like, how do I get the most revenue from this? And so we brought in data scientists, and they started culling through our data that we had, as well as macroeconomic data. And they came up with 5 things that were statistically significant impactors of how much a person would pay for a load of laundry. And it was interesting because one of them included like the price of gasoline. How much gasoline was charged had a direct bearing on whether or not someone would do laundry at home in their common area laundry room at the apartment complex, or whether they would get in a car and start it and drive, to go, if gasoline,
$1 a gallon, whatever it was, or $5.
Yeah, whatever it was. They'll pay 75 cents more to do a load of laundry at home than they'll pay to get in a car, start it, and have to go somewhere. And because gasoline's expensive, they don't want to drive the car. So it's like, that was one. Unemployment, the level of unemployment was another. Distance from your apartment complex to the closest laundromat certainly was one. And so they came up with all these factors. And then the data scientists created these polynomial regression models. And it helped us then determine what the optimal Venn price was for every location we had in North America. And then we would find data streams from the government, like the employment rate, the price of gas, consumer price index, whatever these were. And every month we would download the information from the latest database, and that would cause the whopper, to recalculate what the current optimal Venn price was. And this is in the days of manual Venn price changes in quarters. Someone had to go out and change the Venn price. Well, in today's world, you have, electronic payment systems, connected laundry rooms. You could now take that to a different level and say, hey, what price should I be charging for what time of day and what day a week? And I could remotely change the Venn price, 5 times a day, and it's like, boy, everybody wants to go Saturday morning, so I make it really expensive. And then nobody goes on Monday morning, so let's make it cheaper so that some people will come and go use it there so others can have the opportunity to do it on Saturday morning and pay more. And it's like you can optimize the revenue coming out of the room. And what we used to have to do from a capital expenditure perspective is put in enough machines to handle that brief period of top capacity. And then we would have a lot of underutilized assets throughout the week. And so let's learn how to get people to do laundry on a more level loaded basis, get the maximum revenue we can. But now I can put in half the number of machines to meet the peak demand, and I'm making more money, and I don't have to buy more capital equipment to put in this laundry room that's getting low usage. And so it's like, how can I optimize profit? And so you can get really sophisticated even in a business that's not sexy. And I remember because I was in some Microsoft TV commercials back at the time, and Satya Nadella was going around the world, and he had a set of a washer and dryer that we laser cut in half. and then we put plexiglass and little blue neon lights in them so you could look inside the laundromat. And he was talking about all this cool stuff. And we were a big Microsoft house, and we were using all Microsoft's technology. And they're like, we were an award winner, the most visionary business, and we were a laundry company. And I think the tie was not sexy industry, but using technology to completely change the profitability profile of the company. Isn't that cool? Let's make that a commercial. And so, it's like you can use technology to really alter. And so I'm a big technology guy, and I believe in any business, a part of my getting to 30% growth in earnings involves investing in technology so that my employees who work very hard every day spend their time doing what I call high value work. If I got HVAC techs, I want them sitting in front of broken equipment fixing HVAC because that's their skill. I don't want them driving. I don't want them filling out paperwork. I don't want them ordering parts or running to get parts. It's like whatever I can do to get more time in front of broken equipment and less time doing stuff. And if I can automate that stuff, and be more, more predictive, then I'm going to increase my profitability. So there's always a technology component in any company I build or buy or run geared towards making employees more productive.
Did you write that software, or is there sometimes off the shelf, or do you have to?
It was interesting. I had MIT data scientists working in our company because they thought what we were doing was cool. I had Microsoft's data scientists working in there because they wanted to figure out how to monetize what we were doing, and create a product. And it was like early adopters. I would like to think that we're part of the reason why BI 360 exists. Is that companies like us were pushing the envelope. So back in the day, we had an ERP because we didn't want to do data entry a bunch of times. Now I've been collecting data for 10 years. What can I do with the data? And so as we learned what to do with the data, those data analytical tools started showing up, in the different products and different software platforms. And it's kind of like, it's you have to ask a question and solve for it in order to ask the next question. And so there's this iterative process of investing in technology to become more productive, and then using your data to learn how to become even more profitable. But you can't get to that step until you start being a data-driven company to begin with. And so there's this evolutionary process that I think all businesses go through. And as they scale and get bigger, there's more opportunities to create operating leverage by leveraging the data, by focusing on high-value work being done by people, low-value work being outsourced or turned into a technological solution, so that we're balanced with, we're doing good things that add revenue or service customers and delight them, and we're not spending as much time wasting time doing low-value stuff that doesn't add revenue. It needs to be done, but not adding revenue. So I think there's always a technology angle to me. There's a buy and build. Promise you, I'm always going to be buying stuff and putting them together, but I'm also going to be trying to improve margins, and that involves investing in technology and process improvement and all those boring things like Six Sigma that you hear about. But do companies ever really embrace that and use it? It's like, I got to grow top line. I got to reduce my operating cost in order to increase my bottom line. A piece of it's buy and build, a piece of it's volume, some of it's pricing, some of it's process improvement, margin improvement. I'm a cook in a kitchen, and I've got to have all these ingredients at play in order to be successful.
How did that look when you were buying these HVAC companies? Because, one HVAC company in California is using a different software than this company. And somebody in the Southeast is using completely different.
Well, first thing I'll tell you, John, is that growth is messy. And for people who like everything in its place, very neat and tidy, and my desk has to have everything in the right spot. It's like, if you're doing a buy and build or you're growing an empire, all that goes out the window because growth is messy. And so if I'm buying, in that particular company, we bought 23 companies during my run, we bought 8 in the first 3 years, we bought 15 in the next 2, so it even accelerates. And it's like, as you're learning how to do it, you do more of it, you get better at it. But you're always going to have companies that are partially integrated, not integrated, fully integrated. It's like, it's a process. It's an ongoing thing. And it really revolves around process. Do I have a good process for getting through an integration? And in an interim period, Because at any given time, a company like that I'm building has got some companies on one ERP, some on another. There might be some on QuickBooks. There's 8 flavors of ice cream out there. And so I'm going to integrate companies in a region to get them together, to start. And then I'm going to slowly integrate that into the mothership. There's different levels of integration. So some people do, hey, I'm a collection of companies. I'm proud of it. And I'm not going to try to pretend I'm anything different. I'm a holding company that has 23 separate companies. And that's what I am. And then there's others that say, I'm a partially integrated empire. I've got a common financial system. I've got common HR platforms. I've got, an ERP for the finance, but operationally, I'm letting each company kind of do their own thing because they're all slightly different. They have different needs. And then you've got others that say, hey, I'm going to fully integrate. And so I'll tell you, when I'm doing a buy and build, I'm really focused on, do I have a scalable platform? If I do, then I want to fully integrate because I can create operating leverage. But if I'm not if I don't have a scalable platform, to what level should I integrate? Because I don't want to push what I cannot do and fail. So sometimes I'm doing integration light, sometimes I'm doing integration heavy. And it depends on that base company I've built, how scalable is it? And I'm always involved in transforming the platform at the mothership. Sometimes I'm doing the buy and build and I'm not done yet building, the mothership, and so I'll have different strategies at different times as to how far I can go on integration. What's most important though is just to have a plan, to have a strategy, and that strategy can evolve.
Let me talk about that climbing the PE pyramid and M&A. And this is, I have to be honest with you, my students that come in here and there's the funnels here. By the time they get to the business, it's pretty small because they all want to buy the business, but they don't know what a good deal is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, everybody wants to do buy and build, and very few people are really, really good at it. So it starts by knowing what good looks like before I ever try to buy anything. And I would tell your listeners out there too, even if you're a small company, you can do buy and build on a small scale, and you can get bigger and bulk up and grow faster by buying a company or two in your industry. I was buying them 20 at a time, 30 at a time, but not everybody can do that. But I'm helping a lot of entrepreneurs make their first acquisition or make their first 2 or 3 acquisitions. And it works really well, at the small scale too. I'm working with an entrepreneur right now. We're hiring a banker. We're probably looking at $150 to $160 million exit. They had less than $2 million of EBITDA 18 months ago. We're over 10, and so it's like, this can really get a company growing fast. It's the single largest value creation tool that private equity has in their quiver, in their toolbox. And so starts with, know what good looks like. Do not buy a fixer-upper. Do not buy a bad company. Don't think you're going to fix it. We want good companies run by good people who think like we do, have good reputations in the marketplace, and we want to pay fair market price for it. So I'm not looking for a deal. I'm looking for good companies, and I'll pay fair market price, because arbitrage is going to be the friend that gives me the return. So you go back to like the HVAC world, I buy 23 companies, average price paid 5 times. I sell it 14 times. So for every dollar of earnings I buy, I bring in $14, dollars at exit. So if I pay 5 times, $5 is returning a $14 later. Why buy a fixer-upper to make an extra buck? I'm getting $9 on every dollar I'm buying. I let size and arbitrage work to my advantage. So how does that work? Well, we talked about 33 million small companies in America. There's only 3,000 companies on the planet with $1 billion in revenue. Total. 33 million just in our country are small. They're at the bottom of the pyramid. Anywhere there's high fragmentation and lots of companies in an industry, there are not enough buyers to drive up the prices. And so prices stay low because small companies sell for a small price. Not as much activity, not as many buyers. But as I build and put them together, I'm climbing the capital, the PE pyramid. I'm getting bigger. I'm rewarded with a higher multiple. Why is that? Well, there's $6 trillion in private equity capital. There's thousands of firms, and big firms and small firms all do the same thing. They invest 6 to 8% of their fund in any one company. They can't invest more than 12 because of asset diversification rules that they build into their own, bylaws of the fund. And so they're all buying, about 6 to 8% of their capital from the fund is going into one company at a time. Well, if I'm KKR or a Carlyle or Apollo and I got a $30 billion fund, 6 to 8% of my fund is a big ass number. And I've only got 10 years to do all of this. I can't buy small companies. I'd have to buy 10,000 of them to put my money to work. And so big firms buy big companies, small firms buy small companies. Small companies trade for a smaller multiple because they're plentiful. There's more of them. I buy 20 of them, put them together, I climb the pyramid, and my multiple I'm paying down at the bottom is 5. The multiple I'm selling at is 14. I'm getting, again, $9 of profit on every dollar I'm paying $5 for. I'm getting 14 back. And that alone is creating the massive amount of shareholder return on equity and the multiple of invested capital. That's where the magic is. Sprinkle in some organic growth. Can I get to double digits, please? Sprinkle in some margin improvement. Add in the M&A component, and I've got the perfect ingredients for a outsized return, even in private equity speak, that guarantees me wealth creation. And it guarantees my employees lots of money, lots of opportunities for growth, and raises and new trucks and training and all that stuff we talked about. And so I think it is the single best tool that we've got, but it's also one of the most misused tools by people simply because they don't have a working understanding of how to do it. And that's where guys like me come in, guys like you. It's like we help people do this and become successful doing it. And why do we know? Because I've already made every mistake you can make. And so I haven't learned these lessons because I woke up smarter than you. I learned these lessons because I've spent decades doing it. And I learned, that hurt. Don't do that again. Let me teach you, layperson, for $2.99 how the hell it's done and how to avoid the potholes so that you can have a higher success rate faster. I wish somebody would have given me my books, when I was starting out in my career. Because the one question I get asked a lot, John, is people say, if you could do it all over again, what's one thing you would do differently? I would have left the CEO seat 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Instead of being a CEO for 21, I would have left 10 years ago. Because now that the blinders are off and I no longer have to just focus on one company, my goal was to impact multiple companies at a time. Good Lord, take off the blinders and opportunities are falling out of the sky at me. I bet you I make more in the next 10 years than I made my entire career combined, and I make more today than I did as a CEO. I'm having fun again, which was the main goal and objective. And it's because I'm not constrained to just one company. I can do multiple things at a time now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's why you're on top M&A entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, go out to Amazon, get his books, get all 3 of them. Just don't settle for one. If you don't have all of them, just get them all.
$9.
$9.
Not going to set you back too much. And
I'll tell you what, you got to get the printed version because when I get the printed version, I always mark it up. So, and it sits on my desktop. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And I can tell you 80% of people that buy books still buy paper copies. It's only 20% who buy the ebooks.
Yeah.
And then a smaller percentage do audiobooks.
Adam Coffey, thanks for joining us on Top M&A Entrepreneurs.
It's good to be here, John. Good to see you again. Let's do something real together.
I'm serious. Let's do it.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Let me stop.
I hope this video has inspired you. If you need help buying your first $1 million business, make sure to visit me at dealflowsystem.net. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe down below. Comment on it, share it, tell everyone about it. And thanks for watching.